Okay, so today I'm going to show you how I color tails. This is something that I do the most often. So I have a good system and I make it fast. I have a regular grooming towel with a hole cut in it. And I'll angle you up so you can see that I have a belly loop on this little guy so that he can't jump around or move around or make me worried. I've already done some preliminary trimming. Tail has been washed and dried. And today we're going to use Crazy Liberty brand. Now, this is a great brand because they have such a variation of colors. So if I wanted a more intense blue, I would mix in some of the dark blue. If I wanted a more intense green, I would just simply mix in some of the dark green. Or if I wanted to lighten it, I'd use some of the clear. So I'm going to do light blue going to light green. You make sure you have your tin foil or your wraps for your tail already ready. Mine's hanging up on my grooming bar. I've got an extra towel here to wipe my hands. I'm wearing gloves. Let's get started. So roughly, I will use my line as kind of where you'd start shaving a band. I don't go up too high because it makes it harder to rinse. I'm going to apply some color directly on and use my finger to rub it in. Generally at first I will try to not get my gloves super mucky, just to make it easier for not doing transfer. And then once I have my set amount of color applied and my lines set for different colors, I will then rub it in. Aw, sweetie, you gotta stand. Good boy. Good boy, Hankers. So, I guess I'm out of the camera angle here. So I'm hanging on with my left hand, and I'm, especially if the dog is a wagger, I've got my blind down on my window so that he doesn't see anything that would make him want to wag his tail and pull his tail out of my hand. He's a good boy who's been getting colored for lots of years. You can use a brush, you can use a toothbrush to rub it in totally. The important part is to be thorough. So when you've chosen how much you're going to leave, I'm going to go a bit farther down with my blue, I think. And I tend to eyeball stuff. You definitely could have a little bit more of a fancier way to do it than I am. Okay. So now that I've applied my general amount of color, I'm now going to take my gloves and rub it in, because when you lift up you'll see it's white underneath. So this is the point where having a towel on your lap is handy, because if you need to apply more color you can. The thing you want to keep in mind, you don't want to apply so much that the dog has got color, you know, excess. This stuff is nice, it's not too runny, so you're not going to have it running like you will other brands, and it's not so thick that it's hard to rub in, but you still don't want to waste color, and you don't want to have so much dye on there that it's just rinsing off at the end. There's kind of a right amount. Basically, if you can get it down into the root without having to add more, that's what you're looking for. You don't have to rub it down to the roots, that'll make it stay way longer. So if you say want to try something more temporary, put it more on the outer edge. Just be prepared that if it's a drop coated dog, you will see the root grow out basically, versus if it's a puffy coated dog like a poodle or a Bichon, it'll sit on the outside and it'll have the effect of being fully colored, but they'll have a peekaboo root basically, which is, you can actually do some really cool effects with peekaboo roots. So now I'm going to do the Crazy Liberty green, light green. Oops, sorry. Let's angle this a little bit. And I just kind of stopped there, so that's where I'm going to start. Basically, if you want to make sure you don't have too much contamination from one color to the other, that's the line where you have to be careful, because if I rub too much of the blue, like say right there, there's some blue, that's going to be a darker green. It's not going to be like a lime green anymore. So you can purposely rub that together. You can make like it'd go from blue to dark green to light green. And same thing with pink going to blue, it'd be pink to purple to blue. So play with it a little bit, have some fun. I can't wait to try all the different dilutions and making a really neat ombre or doing more of a rainbow. And again, rubbing in really well. I find this green so far seems to really take. For lots of years it was hard to find a good light green that actually took well. See how it can just hide, that there's little, you think you've got it all, but there's all these little spots, so just keep separating, rubbing it in. Alright. I am going to pick up the tail to see if there's anything I've missed underneath. Don't see anything. Alright, so we are now ready for wrapping it up. So I have the towel on my lap that I've been rubbing my hands off in between colors to not contaminate as much as I can, just because it's better not to get color everywhere. So earlier I had a piece of tin foil I broke off. It was hanging over my grooming arm overhead. So take your tin foil, give yourself a little bit of a lift on it, so fold that lip over. You're going to lift this tail. Going to go snug underneath. And when I have two colors like this, let's turn you a little bit. When I have two colors like this, I like to protect the one color, because especially, well, in the past when I used to use brands that were way runnier, they would intermingle. So by wrapping it and protecting it, you won't have any contamination. So if this green was to fold up and touch that blue, it would affect the green. The green would not be so light. So I like to protect it. Now, wrap it all the way around. Start your timer. And now I'm going to do his rest of his groom. So this dye is going to get to sit for about 20 minutes, maybe 30 minutes if I'm taking my time. That's more than long enough, and then we'll rinse. Okay, so it's soaked for about 29 minutes while I groomed the rest of them and accepted my next dogs. So now I'm ready to do the rinse out portion. So when you're ready to rinse, make sure you have everything ready. I kept the towel that I'd put his tail through because I didn't get a bunch of dye on it, and I put that back on. And then I take a little plastic bag and put that over. It helps if you have some sort of raised surface in the tub. Helps a lot, actually. So I'm going to get my water running a little bit. Now you want it to be on the cool side, not cold, but not hot. If it's hot, the temperature will cause the hair follicles to open up and release more dye than you want. We want to rinse any excess residue, but we want to leave anything in the hair shaft that's soaked in. So I'm just testing it on my arm and making sure it's a good temperature. So I am by myself, so you can see how I do this by myself. Now you can do this two different ways. He's got, let's change this a little bit. We've got the tin foil that we can use to help protect the tail. So you can open up that tin foil again. Now when you're rinsing multiple colors, you can protect one color from bleeding into the other one. So I am going to use the tin foil just to keep the water from running and getting his bum all wet. And I'm also going to protect this green tip by holding it off to the side, by not making it be the bottom area that's going to be rinsed. Therefore, the blue is going to run off to the side, see? Instead of running right into the green. I actually want a little bit more pressure than that. By having a little bit more pressure, more flow to the water, it's going to just push the water in the direction that I want. Okay, so I'm barely getting any color off. This Crazy Liberty dye just soaks it right in. Now I'm going to hold this green up while I'm rinsing, just to not get any glue. Good boy. Don't fall off the edge. Now, to get any residue off, I'm going to just take a little bit of like a foaming wash, because it's a very light, gentle cleanser. That's why I'm doing it. I want to get any of the dye that's sitting on the outside shaft of the hair. So, it's just a very light, what you'd use as a facial wash kind of thing. It's not going to be very strong, because my goal is not to take off a bunch of color, but my goal is that if the dog gets a bit down, that they're not going to have that dye sitting on the outside shaft of the hair. It'll transfer. Now see that, isn't that beautiful? I never get this lack of rinse with Opas, ever. So, very happy. Okay. So now once you've gotten to that point where you're rinsed out, and just take my gloves off here. So then what I do, I pull the water out of there and then pull the plastic off. I take this towel and I hang onto that tail because in the past using other colors, it was still transferable. And then I pick up the whole dog and I move him to the table to dry. So hang on. Okay, so we put him on the table. Now I keep a towel in between just for, well, in the past I used to get transfer. So the fact that I'm not getting anything on this towel on my hands is awesome. I can use a bit of Nano Mist just to put some moisture back in because when I first washed I used like a clarifying. And then now comes the drying. I like to still hold a towel. Just, well, maybe I won't have to now, but in the past I would get a bit of transfer, so we'll see. So you can see my lines. So one thing I've noticed with this color already is that normally when you've prepped a tail and you've not put any conditioner on it, and then when you rinse out the dye, it still feels like it's dry and needs conditioning. That's usually why we do sprays and stuff. But this one, it just feels very shiny and smooth and really quite healthy, actually. So now I'm going to go do my finishing bit of trimming on it, and then we will be all done. All right, and there's your finished tail. Hankertons. Hi, bud. From Crazy Liberty brand. Light blue and light green. Good boy.